Hey moms, it's Nakimi. Welcome to the channel and space for single moms navigating motherhood. And as always, we do not bash the baby daddies because, well, we are here now. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Here we talk about all things pertaining to single motherhood. I am a huge advocate of mental health for single moms. So if you are looking for a community, please hit the subscribe button. Do not forget to hit the like button and leave a comment at the end of the video. So mommies, we are going to talk about getting our children into therapy today. And I specifically want to highlight the Black community with this one for my single Black mothers, especially if you are raising sons and daughters as well. But I really want to talk about the sons today, because I feel far too often mental health, it's not something that our men take seriously, to be honest with you. And so we grew up in a culture where what goes on in our house stays in our house. And although I get the gist of it, right? Because sometimes adults will manipulate kids to try to get in your business with ill intentions or to be nosy, right? The monitoring the spirits, the flying monkeys, or whatever they call them. And we also live in a no snitch culture, right? Don't tell. You'll get that person in trouble or whatever. And that has often hurt us. And when you are a single mother and you are raising a young Black son, I've made a video before, on why I feel like, or what I feel like Black women need to think about before they become mothers. And in that, I really talked about how there's things that we have to think about. There's things that we have to teach our children and conversations that we have to have that our counterparts do not. And that notion or that code of what goes on in our house stays in our house, it has hurt us in many ways, right? There are a lot of things that our kids go through that they cannot verbalize, or they have not been taught or given the safe space to verbalize. And so I am a huge proponent of therapy, and as early as possible, especially getting into therapy with your kids, because the fact of the matter is you are doing it by yourself the majority of the time, right? If not all of the time. And there's an adage that says a woman cannot teach a boy how to be a man, and I wholeheartedly believe that. Now, that's not to say that a single mother cannot raise a boy to grow up to be a good man, but there's going to be some things that young man lacks that he did not get. And so I want to put that out there. I'm not saying that, as a single mom, you cannot raise, a good, strong Black boy. You see it all the time. But again, because we come from a culture of bottling things up, right? And then when we look at, when boys from an early age, they're kind of taught to suck it up. You don't cry. This is what men do. We've taught them early on to suppress any issues or any feelings that they have had. So we've already created somewhat of a monster there. And that's why I feel like there are a lot of men in relationships that don't communicate effectively or don't empathize with what their women have going on. It's just kind of like, oh, well, suck it up. And it can seem as though they're selfish, right? It can seem as though they are non-caring or empathetic to what is going on. They're not really in tune with what's going on with their family or what's going on with their kids, right? So from early on, our boys are somewhat emotionally abused because they're not given the safe space to talk about their issues, or if they cry, they're seen as, a wimp or any other derogatory term that we give them, So Normalize putting your children into therapy early and placing emphasis on mental health with your Black boys. We live in and we're raising our kids in a social media world. They are exposed to everything. I remember when we went to school, when I was in school, and the most embarrassing thing that probably happened to you was your mom coming up there in rollers and her robe and carrying on. Or if you got into a fight and you lost, the whole school knew. But eventually, as the years passed by, that was a thing of the past, right? Just mere gossip, if anyone even gossiped about it. But now with social media, everything is exposed. I was looking at this trend that was going on where, kids will walk up to someone who society deemed as not aesthetically pleasing, and they would say, hey, can you take a picture of us? And they would give the person their phone. So the person is thinking that they're taking a picture of, the kids. They're actually getting a selfie, and they didn't know that they were taking a selfie. And, the kids were putting it online to expose how ugly that they felt that person was, just completely embarrassing these strangers. Wild, right? Or we live in a BBL society. Nothing against BBLs, but it is definitely sending a message to our little girls that their bodies is not enough. I grew up, I was a scrawny little thing, no boobs, no butt, no nothing. You know what I mean? So I know, personally how your image can affect you in school, especially if you don't look quite like the others, or maybe your child is, on the heavier side. So I think that if we normalize and we start teaching our children early to take their mental health serious, it can mitigate a lot of what's going on, and then I think about police brutality and some of the political issues that our young boys are seeing and witnessing, and I think that if we get them into therapy, we can help them see that it's not applicable to all Black boys as far as police brutality. Not all police are racist. Not all police are, racially profiling our boys. We've got to help them to use emotional intelligence and logic. Yes, be safe. Yes, there are certain rules to follow, but we don't want them to be so guarded that they miss out on opportunities or life. We've got to teach them how to think ahead, So I've mentioned it before, besides entertainment and sports, maybe, becoming a police officer, getting into law enforcement to help police your community and help your community. I think that our boys often, especially Black boys, with rap culture and everything else, there's just not a lot of positivity that's put out there about our Black men. And there are some great Black men that are out there that are doing great things in this world, but that's not really highlighted, right? That's not really glorified. And we don't want to tell our kids to keep everything in, because the fact of the matter is, you as a single mother cannot be afraid to confront what it is that your child feel that you are doing wrong. You've got to take accountability, because you don't want your child or children to grow up and resent you, or now they have mommy issues. Right? Your young son grows up to be a young Black man that doesn't want to date Black women because of how you treated him, or how he just seen women in the community, Black women in the community, and he grows this disdain for, Black women. Or you don't want it to be where, he starts to be a womanizer or an abuser because of how you treated him, right? And that may not even be the case, right? But it could just simply be that I don't feel like I get enough time with my mom, and they don't know how to verbalize that or internalize what it is that they're feeling. But going to therapy with your kids also gives you the opportunity to show that vulnerable side of you, to let your kids know, hey, mommy loves you. Mommy is doing the very best that she can with the resources that she have and the knowledge that she have. But together, since we are a family, therefore we are a team, let's tackle our mental health because we've got a lot going on, kids. Yep. We've got a lot going on, but that's okay. We're going to fix it. As long as God has given you another day and there is still breath in your body, you have the opportunity to course correct with you and your kids. Yep. Take your mental health seriously for sure. And teach your young black boys that it is okay, that even though he is a man and there are certain roles and a certain leadership position that he is supposed to step into as head of the household, it does not mean that he has to carry the weight on his shoulders. It is okay to say that I am mentally struggling in this area and I don't know. I need help, right? No man is an island. Yeah. For sure. Get your kids into therapy and get into therapy with your children. That should be your primary focus. And it does not mean that you are a bad mom. You know, to me, it says the opposite. Like, I'm concerned about my babies. You know, you don't want them to go older and use drugs, right? Because this fentanyl is out here, or alcoholism, or worse, you know. Well, I don't want to say worse, but, you know, even, or also, shall I say, you know, becoming promiscuous. We don't talk about that. There are little boys that have been inappropriately touched or introduced to intimacy. I have to watch what I say on YouTube. Introduced to intimacy at an early age. So they become promiscuous. And they begin to just use, you know, intimacy as an outlet or a release. And they don't even know the responsibilities of that come with starting to be intimate with little girls. You know, or they run through them. You know, they don't really have a value for their body and what they have going on. Yep. Get your young black boys into therapy as early as possible. And like I said, when you're picking out a therapist, you're probably going to want to find someone that can relate, hint, hint, that can relate to what the struggles that our community have. Yep. So I don't know. You guys drop a comment. Let me know. What do you think about therapy and getting your kids into therapy? Have you tried it? Has it been working for you guys? To my single mommies, you got this, mamas. I love you guys. Till next time. Bye.